It's an interesting sort of life lesson. The idea of like, what do you find easy that other people find difficult? Go for that. Do that for a living. There's going to be money there. There's going to be some gold. You're going to be okay. If you find it easy and everyone else is going, that's impossible. So, standing up in front of people being funny, I find very easy. Like these kind of conversations, you slightly second guess yourself.
It's what you're used to, I think. It's what you spend a lot of time becoming acclimatized to doing.
Yeah, I suppose. It's just that thing of, I've always said in comedy, people sort of talk about how many years they've been doing comedy and it seems faintly ridiculous. It's like when you talk to an airline pilot, they've got a really good view on it. They talk about how many hours they've got in the sky. And for me, like there's no substitute for stage time. And I'm sure for you, there's no substitute for this, for actually doing it. Everything else is kind of, it doesn't matter how many years you've had a podcast. I think something about the frequency of your show as well. Mm-hmm. It's always there. There's always something new.
You talk about the most important question to ask yourself being, what do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that an awful lot. I studied a lot of, studied and was very interested in sort of NLP. And that question of what do you want in the micro, in the macro, being the absolute key in sort of life. Because people sort of, I suppose it's that thing of going, what does something represent? Someone might say, well, I want a Ferrari. But why? If you sort of dig a little deeper, you can't just ask once, what do you want? Well, I want a Ferrari and a Rolex and all of the trappings. But actually what they want is status. So it's kind of asking yourself, what game are you going to play? I've read a lot of that René Girard stuff about sort of mimetic desires. So this idea that you've got what you really want at kind of a fundamental level, it's about you and what you perceive you should have compared to others. So this idea of kind of being honest about what you want and why you want it.
Well, splitting apart what is a genuine desire that's come from you, that's been self-authored, and what is just the things that you've taken from the way you dealt with past trauma and what your parents valued and what society says that you should, and the paths of least resistance and your genetic predisposition. This beautiful quote that says, ultimately happiness comes down to choosing between the discomfort of becoming aware of our mental afflictions and the discomfort of becoming ruled by them. And it's this.
Yeah, it's a lot though, isn't it? I mean, it's like, I don't think anyone gets there. No. By the way, I think there's slightly, I think sometimes when I hear people kind of interviewed talking about this stuff, there's a sense of, oh, well, I'm enlightened now and I knowing that you only want that thing because you've got that thing. And I want the new iPhone because you've got the new iPhone. Knowing that doesn't really make any difference because when you're out there in the world, you've still got to live a life and do something.
Correct.
But it's about what that Will Storr book I thought was phenomenal. The Status Game. I mean, all these books are great, actually. He's a really interesting, sort of underrated writer. He's wonderful. But that thing of like going, well, actually, you pick what status game you play in. You can have anything. You can't have everything. It's that thing of just the words seem to be very important to me. The idea of saying you can work for anything in life to a kid, as opposed to you can have anything, is the difference between ambition and entitlement. Summed up. There's that lovely thing you sent out the other day.
Yes.
The difference between ambition and entitlement being,
ambition is when you expect yourself to close the gap between what you have and what you want. Entitlement is when you expect others to close the gap between what you have and what you want.
Yeah, that thing of like agency seems, that's very high on my list of like getting back to what do you want? Agency. I want I want control to be in here. Like, I think it's better to be a stand-up. I mean, the thing I've been thinking about recently is being stoic, doing less better. Being a stand-up is a great job. And there's so many stand-ups that get the job of being a stand-up and then they want to be an actor. And I go, you're mad. It's not as good a job. It's better to do a podcast than to have a TV show. Because you're in charge. Yeah. You're your own boss. You're kind of, cancel proof, not that you'd be particularly bothered about that, but the idea of going, you're in charge and you've got agency and you can do what you want.
Well, there's a
huge power to that.
There's a level of